All right. Welcome to another episode of Levi in the Closet. Thank you guys for checking out my videos. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. I'm trying to put out videos every single Wednesday, so if you uh, subscribe to my channel, get notified every time I put up a new video, and hopefully you find some good content that you can relate to or take a little bit of advice away from. If you haven't already, follow me on Instagram at Levi Acid. You can message me there if you have any kind of questions or any topics that you want me to speak on in my next videos, and I'd be happy to, have a conversation. Or if you reach out, I'd also like to hear what you guys have to think about my videos or anything that I talk about on the channel. So getting right into it today, this is Levi in the closet, of course, so I got to show you an item out of my closet. This item isn't necessarily out of my closet. I keep these folded up in a drawer in my room, but this is still, an item of clothing that I consider an essential for every man. It's the classic wife beater or white beater. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it or what you call it. Undershirt, white wife beater, I guess. I don't have a wife, but I still like to rock it every so often, and I think it's an essential. You can wear it with, like a flannel or some kind of button-down shirt. You wear it underneath that, like a little bit buttoned up. You can see this underneath. Maybe put a chain over that too, so it adds a little bit of texture, some layers. Or I wear this underneath my work shirt usually because the material gives me a heat rash. So if I just wear the shirt by itself, I'll start to break out all over my shoulders, and it's not nice. It's kind of an eyesore. So I try to wear something underneath that so that it'll keep me from getting a heat rash. But anyway, I digress. um, I think this is an essential. A girl that I recently was going out with for a while, she's always mentioning when we go out or when we get together, she says that I wear clothes she doesn't usually expect me to wear. And so one day I was just like, well, what do you expect me to wear? What do you, picture me wearing when you think of me? And she's like, well, I picture you wearing one of those white undershirts. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't know that I ever just wore one of these around her ever, so I don't know why she would picture me wearing that. But yes, I do wear these occasionally, and maybe like if I'm just around the house, just something to throw on, then I'll put that on. But that's not typically something I just wear just that. um but anyway, into the topic of today's video. It's a little bit late into this, but I wanted to talk about the No Nut November. If you're celebrating it this year or this month, mostly for guys, I'd assume. But if you're a girl doing No Nut November, um, props to you. Um, I think originally it was because of testicular cancer. That's the reason why it all came about. Or No Shave November, one of those two. I have done both. I participated in both, but this month I'm particularly focusing on the No Nut November. And I'm letting my beard shave or my beard grow out a little bit. I haven't shaved in a while, but that's just a coincidence. And No Nut November, I guess that's also just kind of a coincidence that it was this month. But a little bit of a backstory before I get too much into it. I recently just started thinking about, pornography and, suggestive content, I guess you could call it, and how that affects me personally, because that's something that I've struggled with a lot of my life, like watching porn and adult content. And so I just decided, you know what, I need to take a break and try to step away from that. There's a lot of things I've been cutting out of my life, and I thought that would be the next healthy step, is to just kind of get away from that. And I've heard a lot about it, and people, it's been pretty popular on social media, like on YouTube or on Facebook or TikTok or whatever. I've seen a lot of different people talk about it, sometimes in a joking way, other times in a serious way. But this is just my own personal opinion and experience. Um, so the first thing, people say that it's good for you just because, like, the way that it affects your brain and the way that you think about things and the way you think about women, which I agree with, because observing that kind of media and consuming it, I think it will change how your brain operates. because of, the spike in, I can't remember what it is, the certain chemical your brain gives off. I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but like when you see something that gets you sexually aroused, then your brain starts shooting off this kind of chemical. If you know what I'm talking about, you can comment below. um, but it's not natural. Like when you're naturally with a woman, you probably, your brain will give off this chemical as well. Hey, and I think that's the best way to go about it. I don't want to have it artificially there, being stimulated by, uh, just a digital woman, or, that's not even somebody I know. That's not even some real situation a lot of the time. Like a lot of it is stimulated um, to be more, dramatic, or to be more sexual, which, sex obviously is sexual. And if you haven't already guessed by now in the video, this is a little bit more for adults. Or I'm speaking on some adult themes here. Um, but yeah, I think that, sex is great. That closeness and the, the experience that you share with another person, I think that's very important. And I think that's amazing. So finding that in other ways, like through the internet and through pornography, isn't as healthy. And we've been really exposed to that as a culture. Like it's become more okay and also more accessible because everybody nowadays has a phone, but that doesn't make it okay. And I think that's overstimulating in a way. Like some things, if you do a little bit at a time, like if you drink a little bit, or if you, smoke a little bit, or if you, take a little bit of medication, or whatever it is, whatever your vice may be, that's okay if you just do a little bit of it. But then once there's a lot of it that you consume, you start, drinking all the time, you start smoking all the time, you start taking pills all the time, then that's when it becomes a problem. And, for me, like watching porn, not as much as I've heard from other people, or as I've been told, as by friends and stuff, they're watching and masturbating every day, or like multiple times a day, and that's never really been a problem for me. There's been, kind of periods for me where it's like, maybe once every couple days, or like maybe on the odd chance, like it has happened in the past, maybe like multiple times a day, like one or two times a day, but it's never been like, 3 times a day, every single day, continuously, forever. It's been like, maybe once a week, maybe when I'm tired, or I need that, like, that extra little boost during the week, or like I made it through a whole week and I'm like, you know what, this wouldn't be so bad. Like it's kind of a way to relax and kind of in an odd way to reward myself. But also, I don't think that's necessarily the healthiest way to go about it. Um, I've heard, and this is the second point here, I've heard that it's somehow your semen retention, if you've heard that expression before, like retaining your semen and holding on to your seed, that's supposed to be like the male essence, that's where all your power comes from. Um, I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that. I think that is, important. That's the one thing males have, because that's, what creates life. That's how we make babies. I don't know if it's necessarily the male essence or anything. Like if you, if you release it, then it makes you more frail, or more, or less masculine. I don't necessarily believe that. I've heard that if you go for long periods of time with semen retention, that it opens up your third eye, or like you start to see colors differently, or like certain things like that. I've never had that experience. A lot of times it just ends up becoming, a wet dream at some point. Like it can only be so long that your body can hold and store this all up. And so then you have to get rid of it at some point, I think. Like that's natural to happen no matter what age. Like if you just keep holding it up, it's got to come out somehow. And I don't think it necessarily opens up my third eye or anything. Like I've done shrooms before, and I think that really kind of did the trick. It made me see things a lot differently than the way that I had previously. But as far as no nut, I don't know. I don't think it gave me any kind of psychic abilities or special powers like what people talk about. I've heard that a lot, and if you maybe you do find that to be true, maybe that's just not how it is for me. But, if that's something that you've experienced, then that's awesome, I commend you. But if you're just looking into this or you want to know the truth from somebody that just is speaking honestly, I've never had that experience, and I like to think of myself as a pretty spiritual person. So if it did open up my third eye or made me, see the whole world in a different way or something like that, gave me more power, I'd tell you, I'd let everybody know. Because that's something I'm always looking for. Like, how do I become the best version of myself? And I do think, not watching porn and semen retention, I think that's healthy. That's a healthy habit to get into. But I don't think that's necessarily um, giving you any kind of power other than, the power of being mentally aware of yourself and like being in control of your desires and self-control wise. I think that in itself is a power, but I don't think it's like some kind of superpower, like, oh, all of a sudden I'm doing semen retention and now I'm like, super strong and like I can talk to any woman and just woo her and blah blah blah. It's like, no, you learn that, and you practice that and you get better and you become better, but it doesn't just automatically happen because of something like that. um I do think that is, again, I think it's healthy for you to step away from that. Like, if you struggle with porn, I understand that's not easy, or that's something that um a lot of us, as younger children, were probably exposed to. So it's been in your life for a long time that you've had to deal with, and it can be hard to get away from that. I've stopped and started at some points. Like I've said, like, okay, this is gonna be the exact last time. I've had a girlfriend and had access to sex or like whatever it is, the sexual aspect, and then still gone back to porn and like still struggled with it throughout that time. And it wasn't because I didn't feel fulfilled or like she wasn't doing it for me. She was completely, but still, on the other hand, I kept becoming drawn to this thing. Like, I've heard it's because guys like to have options, or because there's just other things out there. I'm curious, or I don't know. The one thing I will say though is, through porn, and you can't always take this to be true, but I do think it kind of teaches you some things. Like, if you can watch it with kind of a outside, like, observational perspective, you will learn a little bit, like, what to do, and like, okay, here's some things I could try differently. Like, not like, in that 70s show where the guys, they all go to a adult movie, and then Eric is with Donna, and then he does something like, I've always tried to guess, like, what is it that he did that she thought was so awful and so, like, so disgusting, like she calls him like disgusting and a pig and all that. And I was like, I want to know what it is that he tried, because a lot of the things that I've done with a girl, like, I've done some nasty things. Mom, dad, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, but um anything that I've done, they've always been okay with. And I guess that also depends on the girl, or like how comfortable they are. But, I've done some stuff that, is not always, just like, oh, we're just going to have some regular vanilla sex. It's like I do things to kind of spice it up. Again, sorry, mom and dad. But, they go to this movie, and he sees something there, and he's like, oh, well, I've never seen that before. I have, two or three key moves I like to stick to. And then he goes and tries it, and she calls him all these names and all that. But I do think that there is things that you can learn, like just stuff you can learn and try. And if it's a little bit more edgy, a little bit more, I don't know what you'd call that, but if it's, not something that's just normal, like if it's, I don't want to get too descriptive here, but you know where I'm going with this. Um, you might want to talk about it with the person you're with first, and just kind of discuss it and be like, hey, so I wanted to try this, or what do you think about this? Discuss that first. But also, I do think that it is someplace you can learn. That's kind of where I figured out, how to have sex properly, like the right things to do in a weird way. But that's the one of the few good things I think about porn. And the other would be just um, I don't want to say infidelity. But, you know, not having sex, you know, if you're taking a break from sex or if you're waiting until you're married to have sex, I do think this is a good alternative because then it can help you, you know, get through those periods of like, okay, I'm not having sex right now, whether that's by choice or whether you just are going a long time without having access to a woman, you know, maybe you're just going through kind of a dry period, then yeah, this can kind of help a little bit. It helps you feel a little bit better, and that release of kind of, you know, it's kind of, well, it's a relief. Release is a relief, but you feel a little bit better. But again, as long as you aren't doing that consistently and it's not becoming like a daily thing, or it's not uh you know, affecting your mood or like something you think about constantly, then I think it's okay. But also, you know, just the point where I'm at in my life, I kind of want to take a break from that. So that's kind of what I'm doing this month. And again, not intentionally, and it didn't really occur to me that it was November, and I've been doing this probably since the last week of October up until now. I've been taking a break from porn and, you know, what comes along with that, if you know what I mean. um and so far so good. I haven't felt any real urges. There's been times I've been like, you know what, I got nothing going on tonight, I could probably, you know, watch a little bit and get away with it. I live on my own, I don't have anything to do. But then I'm like, you know what, I'm trying to hold myself accountable here, I'm trying to achieve a goal, you know. And so for me, that's just a personal goal. And, you know, maybe just get away from that forever and break these habits that I've had so that I can be a little healthier in the future. My mind can be a little bit clearer. Not as clear as people say. I don't think it's as eye-opening and as like the haze lifts and then you just see everything completely differently. I don't think it's that way. But I do think, you know, the small changes over time, like holding yourself accountable and having that kind of control, I think that is empowering, and I think that will help. um, that's really all I have to say on the subject. Hopefully, if you guys are participating in Nonut November, you can get some inspiration out of this, and you know, you can make it. Just keep just keep working on your goal. Just focus on other things. You know, like go read a book, go, you know, just watch a movie. You can, you know, play with your pet, or go clean your room, go do the laundry, go wash your dishes, you know, find something else to do with your time. I would say go take a shower, but then, you know, that can kind of, you know, go hand in hand there. So be careful. It's a slippery slope. But anyway, with that being said, I love you guys and love yourself before anybody else. And I'll catch you in the next video.